Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming in. As Ariel pointed out, this is, as you can see by the slide, the road to financial wellness in the workplace. We decided to do this as a two-parter. Last week was speaking more towards business owners. However, the session you've got today is pretty much for everybody. So it is a standalone session. So there's no reason that you would not want to be here today if you missed part one. Part one was a different topic, and it was discussing the problem we have in our financial world today. So just covering that real briefly to start with, just so you're kind of all caught up. And again, I'm not going to go through all these slides and these details. I'm going to cover this main one here. The average personal debt in the country today is $38,000. 25% of all that debt is credit cards. Now, the rest of that goes to personal loans, medical bills, mortgages, student loans, etc. And thinking about how large student loans, as you can see, they're $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. Just think how big the credit card debt is, if that's 25% of the total. We find these student loans to be predatory lending, interest-only payments sometimes even less than that, depending upon who your lender is. And that can certainly cause higher interest over the life of that loan. Also, 2 in 10 people spend 50% to 100% of their net take-home pay, their income, on debt. I am a financial coach. I'm a registered nurse. And I live in Concord, Ohio with my children, with one of my children, my middle one, who's my son. My 2 adult daughters are out on their own. And one of the things I do is money stuff with people. As I said, a financial coach. And I have a client who takes home $1,700, $1,800 a month, and the minimums on her debt payment was $1,400. So these things are real. These numbers are actual numbers. At the very end of the presentation, Ariel, if you would like, we can certainly add in the references like we did last week, and I'm fine with that.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay, I'll pull those up. So we did cover the problem and the solution in the business world, but the problem is kind of standard for all. So what I want to start with is talking about financial freedom. So here we're going to discuss the road to financial freedom. We have quite a bit to get through today. We may go over the hour depending upon questions, and that's fine with me. I've got some time to do that, and I will leave that to you folks if you want to do that or not. But we'll move on. So financial freedom. What does freedom look like? Well, it is possible for you to be a millionaire. Without going into too many details and reading the slide to you, because I'm sure you can refer back or read it yourself. But there's a gentleman named Chris Hogan who wrote a book called Everyday Millionaire. And he studied the habits of over 10,000, literally 10,000 millionaires. They pay off their home early. They've got modest incomes. Now, these incomes we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of anywhere from $30,000 to $70,000 a year. They're not rich. They don't take big risks with their money, as in putting all their money into one stock. They are responsible for themselves. They don't seem to keep up with the Joneses. They're good with what they're doing. And we've developed a process, a few steps to help us get there. And there's a reason for the order and for the steps I'm going to go over with you tonight. Anybody who is familiar with or ever heard of Dave Ramsey is familiar with these steps. If you haven't, check them out, daveramsey.com. Some good stuff on site, good content there. But my training has been through Ramsey Solutions, so I follow the precepts laid out here by this gentleman. And the number one is saving $1,000 for emergencies. 2 is paying off your debt, except for your mortgage. 3 is fully funding an emergency fund. 4, saving for retirement. 5, saving for your kids' education. 6, paying off your home early. And 7, hey, that's where the fun begins. Build wealth, live and give. So one of the things you're going to find out, and I'll reiterate to you as we go through today, it's not about the math. It's about the behavior. what we've done here is proven to work with over 5 million people, and or $5 million in debt has been killed, and over 25 years we've done this stuff. So, and we call them the baby steps because you got to learn to walk before you can run. So let's get right into it. Baby step one: save $1,000 for an emergency as fast as you can. All right. Why do I want to do that? I've got all these bills that I have to pay. Well, have you ever had the situation where you just got caught up? I just got caught up. And then the hot water tank dies, or your alternator on your car goes, and boom, you're right back into debt again. Purpose of saving $1,000 is to kind of catch those things so you don't need to go back or further into debt. And we're going to be covering what I call the four walls and a roof. Pardon me. The most important things: these are your communication, this is your housing, including your utilities, this is your clothing, your food, and your transportation. So having that $1,000 emergency fund, if you have the car go out, or if you something happens and you lose your job for a short while, like that couldn't happen with a virus, right? What this does is it gives you peace of mind, and it turns a crisis into an inconvenience. The second baby step, and we're going to start getting deeper and deeper. The first one was quite simple. Second one, though, is to kill your debt as fast as you can. Again, you get to that point where you've just gotten caught up, something happens, you get into debt, it keeps going down, it keeps going down. We want to get rid of the debt you've got. We want to take that money that you're giving to someone else, and we want to give it to you. So what are some samples of debt? I want to call out anything that you owe to anybody else is debt. So here's the example I'm going to give you. One of our clients, and I'm communicating with other financial coaches across the nation, and we don't talk about individual things. We do mind the confidentiality, but we talk about interesting things and commonalities. A young lady was doing her budget with another financial coach in another state, and they worked her budget out. And originally she said, I have zero debt. Hey, that's great. Let's move on. Well, after they worked her budget out, she looked at the person and said, the coach, and said, what about my car payment? And he looked at her like, what? Yeah, my car payment. So apparently she was taught you will always have a car payment and treat it like a utility. So we want to get rid of that thought. We want to move away from that paradigm, and we want to get to the point where you realize that everything you owe someone else is debt. Your house payment, your car payment, your credit card payment, your school loan, everything is debt. Medical bills, they're all debt. And again, remember, this is a mindset that we've got to work on. It's more about behavior than it is the math. So how do we do this? We do this with something we can call a debt snowball. We're going to end up snowballing payments for you so that you can knock this debt out with as much success as possible, as fast as possible. So here's how that works. Very first thing you're going to do is you're going to list your debts. You're going to list them with the smallest total amount due at the very top of that list, and then move them on down. And don't forget, in that third column, we want to see what those minimum payments are going to be. But list them from smallest to largest. All right? That was very simple. Once that's done, I'm going to have you try to crush that smallest debt. So in the example you see here, it's the Kohl's charge card for $500. That minimum payment is $25, but no, we want to put as much towards it as possible. So how can you do that? Very simple. You can work a budget, find some more money. Don't go out to eat as often. Curb some entertainment costs. Perhaps you've got subscriptions that you don't use or that you can do without, such as Hulu, Netflix, those sorts of things. Another idea is get another job, a second income source, a side gig, if you will. There are people who we come across as coaches who deliver pizzas for extra cash. In fact, we had one guy who was delivering pizzas, and he was delivering them in a neighborhood that was 15 miles away from his house. It was way away. He was a little embarrassed that he had to get a second job. Well, the funny thing is, he ended up going back to the neighborhood he lives in for his second job delivering pizzas because the tips were better. So get out of the mindset that you are too good or too strong or too well trained for another job. This gentleman was an executive and he was delivering pizzas to make extra money to pay off his debt. Crush it however and however fast you can. So let's just say that you were able to come up and we do your budget and you find that you've got $500 a month extra. Wahoo. All right. This isn't going to increase the monthly cash out. Think about a snowball rolling downhill. But what we're going to do is we're going to take that. We're going to take $475 for the example, add it to the 25. We come up with $500. Boom. We have killed in 1 month that Kohl's charge card. Okay. Very good. So now we take that $500 and we add it to the 65. If you'll look on the screen, I'm going to look away from you. Take that $500 and we add that to the 65 minimum payment. And basically $2,500 divided by the 565 gives us 4.5 months. That bill will then be paid off in the 4.5 months. So now we're paying $565. We add that to the 85 minimum monthly payment there, and now we are paying $650 towards debt. That one will be paid off in 9 months. And you see how we roll down the whole cycle there. This gentleman will have $30,000 in debt paid off in 3.5 years. Now, that's not to say you can't pay it off quicker. If you find your side gigs going good and you get that extra cash, slap it on that debt, but kill that debt as fast as possible. Repeat this until you're debt free. And again, remember, it's not about the behavior, it's about the math. So why do I mention that? Most people are going to say, Steve, why doesn't it make sense to pay off the highest interest card first, the highest interest debt first? Because I'm paying that extra interest, I should kill that. Well, yeah, absolutely it does. We all know that, but have you done it? And that's where the whole behavior modification concept comes in. Okay. So the reason this process works is you really can't see progress if you just start with that largest debt and paying all that extra interest. You can't see that progress going very well. You're still paying your 25 on this one, 65 on that one. You're still crushing along, crumping along. But if you kill that smallest debt first, it gives you a win. It'll actually energize you. I've gone from 6 debts down to 6 debts down to 5 debts. 5 down to 4. Look at that. I'm only writing 4 checks a month, or I'm paying them out of my bank a month. Just 4. And then down to 3. And then you crush it. You crush it. And by the time you start on that last few bills, you have got a huge amount because of that snowball that we've thrown at that debt that we have killed. Now, I want you to consider your debt as a gazelle considers a lion. Run. That debt is crushing you, and that debt is keeping you from achieving the success you can in your life as far as being able to retire the way you want to on your own terms. Run from that debt. Now, I want to talk briefly about credit cards. There are some potential problems with credit cards. And I'm going to cover those in a second, but if you're going to use a credit card, make sure you carry no balance. You pay it off every month. Make sure you're not paying interest on that card by paying it off every month, but it can be a landmine. It's very easy, again, to overborrow. If an emergency occurs, instead of tapping your emergency fund or cash that you've had, you go further into debt because it's very easy to grab that piece of plastic. It's easy to carry those balances. And think about this. Well, I pay off my plastic every month. I pay it off just fine. What if you lose your job or you get furloughed? It could never happen that any of us are in the midst of a pandemic and a virus and we lose our jobs, could it? Consider the ramifications and the risk and mitigate that risk as much as possible before you consider taking on any plastic, any debt whatsoever. So let's move on to baby step 3. Please forgive me. Now we've got our $1,000 on an emergency fund. We have absolutely no debt. All right. And now we need to get together a fully funded emergency fund. Now, how do I make this happen? Well, let's go back here a second. I want to go back and see something here. When we went through the debt snowball, there we go. You'll notice that we are actually paying $870 a month towards that last debt. All right. Well, that's great. But now that we have absolutely no debt, what is the thing that would hold us up from taking that $870 and giving it back to ourselves? Paying ourselves that money. So what is emergency fund? That is 3 to 6 months of savings, easily accessible, whether it's in a bank savings account or a money market or whatnot, easily accessible to cover your 4 walls and a roof. All right. Your car breaks down. You need to get it fixed. Go ahead and tap the emergency fund. Your hot water tank in your house goes. Go ahead and tap that emergency fund. Now, is it 3 months or is it 6 months, Steve? Consider this. What's your job? If you are the sole breadwinner of the house, perhaps 6 months is wise. Okay. And we'll cover some reasons why coming up here. But if there's 2 breadwinners in the house, say one or both of you have a job where you can easily get employment, such as a nurse, then maybe 3 months is appropriate for you folks. So you have to kind of determine that on your own. Again, you can certainly work with your financial planner or with a coach, and we'd be happy to help you determine those things. But what if you lost your job today? Could you cover your bills for 6 months? And that's a question a lot of people are asking very, very seriously currently. So according to the Federal Reserve Board, just about half of Americans surveyed can't even cover a $400 emergency. One of the people I was talking to in my coaching world was a person who was interested in offering this for some of her business clients or some of her employees in the business. And they were relaying to me a story of a gentleman who called off just recently because he had a flat tire. A flat tire, okay. When can you get it fixed and get here? Well, he couldn't afford an Uber to get to work. He couldn't afford a tow truck or AAA to come out and take the tire to the shop. He didn't have the equipment and couldn't afford the equipment to take the tire off himself, drive it to a shop, or get it to a shop with somebody else's car because his family had no other car to get the tire fixed. This gentleman lost a day's pay. The company lost the work product of an employee for a flat tire. Okay? This has broad-reaching effects. So, what can happen? Obviously, illness, you or the family laid off, fired, quit. But why do you need 3 to 6 months? Well, we're going to say 6 months. It's usually about 6 months before a long-term disability policy kicks in. Once you have a fully funded emergency fund, you won't even need to pay for a short-term disability policy. Some folks get that through their employer. That's fine. But 6 months is about what that takes. It also prevents the need for a short-term disability. As I said before, unemployment benefits are time-consuming to get, may not be quick to pay. Basically, what you're looking at is risk mitigation. Decrease the risk to yourself and to your family with that emergency fund. So we've talked about financial freedom. Okay, we've gotten free from debt. We've gotten free from worry. Remember, those emergency funds turn our crisis into an inconvenience. So let's move on and let's talk about financial security. Okay. These are the next steps. So, step 4, save for retirement. Oh, where do you want to retire? You put in the chat box, you don't have to, don't care, but I want you to think about it. Close your eyes and think about, what does retirement look like to you, regardless of age? Think about that and get a vision for it. So the question I have is, I have for you is, how much do you spend on debt today? How much could you make if you put that towards your retirement? We're going to go into a few examples here shortly, but I've got a question for you, and please, let's get an answer or two in the chat box. When's a good time to retire? And you can send that to Ariel, to me, or to everyone. It's your call.
Yep. We have an answer here, age 67.
Okay. Very
Sounds
common
like
answer and a good answer. Go ahead. Anything
have
else?
a 62.
Okay. And I got 162. Yep. All right. So I'm going to challenge you on those numbers. Those numbers are really, really good, but I'm going to challenge you. Consider this: retirement is a number, not an age. And the answer is going to be different for everybody. Now, age is a very common and very easy benchmark to set. But if you had the money you needed now, would you retire? If you had the money you needed now and you love your job, would you never stop working? Again, it's a number, not an age. So let's move on and investigate that a little bit. Let's look deeper. You need to determine the type of lifestyle you want in retirement. Do you want to travel? Do you want to sit home and garden? Just hit the bike paths? Are you the kind of person that just walks to the park and plays chess? I don't know. But think about the type of lifestyle you want. Once you've determined that, you need to create a mock budget. For doing this mock budget, there are a number of things here that you need to consider: utilities, insurance, new car fund, because you're going to need to get new cars, trips and gifts, home repairs, et cetera, et cetera. I want you, for this exercise, to assume a zero debt situation. And this includes your mortgage. All right. Let's assume everything you have is paid off. How much do you have and how much do you need coming from your investments? A good place to look is www.chrishogan360.com. On his website, he's got something called a retirement calculator, an RIQ. Do that. It's a very, very interesting exercise to see what the story is for that. So do that. Check out Chris Hogan 360. But in the meantime, consider this. Evaluate your situation. Say you're 45. How much do you have? I did my RIQ, and my retirement number is 1.2 million. That's what I need to live the lifestyle I want at the age that I have chosen. I want to live a lifestyle of comfort, going to parks, going out to eat occasionally, but staying right where I am. And I want to retire at 67. Okay, there you go. Or I want to retire in 10 years at 55. Let's do that. So I've got $130 in my retirement now, and I'm currently investing $625 a month. All right, great. So my estimated retirement portfolio at age 55 currently is $468,000. I've got a difference of $732. I want to retire in 10 years. I'm going to need $31,000 to $39,000 per year to fill in the gap. That's a lot of numbers in rapid fire, and I wanted to apologize for that. But in simple, 1.2 million minus 732. By the time I'm 55, putting in my 625, I'll have 486. So I've got a gap there. That's what that means. All right. So what do you do to fill that gap? There's a lot you can do. you can get out of debt, including your house, which is what we're talking about, which is why I want you to consider, your mortgage coming out and throwing that towards retirement. You could also lower your retirement budget. Instead of taking 3 trips a year or 1 trip a quarter, maybe we'll take 1 good vacation every year instead. Let's do that. Let's plan that. We could retire later. Let's hold it off for an extra 10 years. All right. So notice $468,000 invested at age 44. You could earn and come to a portfolio of 1.3 million in 10 years, depending upon how you invest it. And again, you should invest that with a certified financial planner, with an investor professional. Another thought is get a second job. You can keep those second jobs and again, deliver those pizzas. You've already got it from doing baby step 1. Maybe you just kept that job. Ask yourself how hard you're willing to work to retire by the age you want or in the style you want. That's a question we all have to ask ourselves. So pour everything into your investing if you can, okay, to retire early. Cut costs. Watch the vacations, decrease your grocery income. Just think of it. Haircuts, gym memberships, subscriptions. Do we need all those? You also want to meet regularly with your financial advisor. Keep an eye on your money. You want to be involved and maintain control, but you also want to make sure you've got someone who's got the heart of a teacher and will answer your questions. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about selecting a financial planner, somebody you can trust, and the questions you might want to ask. So play it smart. Revisit your retirement dream. Decide whether you want to work. Keep a close eye on things. Consider your location. Determine how to manage your income streams. Is it coming from work? Is it coming from my investments? Is it coming from Social Security? What am I getting? So until you're completely out of debt, you want to start putting 15% of your monthly income towards your retirement. Now, a lot of people will ask me, are we talking gross or max? Well, we're talking your gross income, all right, ideally. Maximize those employer-provided IRAs. Those are fantastic. Maximize your spouses. Get that employer match. That's great free money. And invest the rest in a Roth IRA for you and your spouse. Okay. Now, there are some qualifications that you need to meet to be able to invest in a Roth. Your certified financial planner can help you with that. They could also help you move into other investing avenues, such as mutual funds and things like that. But to find a professional, well, here are the questions you want to ask. You want to know that guy working for you or that woman working for you, sorry folks, is the quality person you want. Are they just punching the clock, or do they actually love what they do? What services do they provide? Do they give you pros and cons? Do they pick the mutual fund for you? Do they set your savings benchmarks and help you do that? You want to learn they want to make sure they learn about your strategy, your goals. They spend time with you to understand you. Communication, are they proactive, or do you have to call them and then wait days for them to get back to you? You want someone who's going to be obviously proactive. Ask them how they get paid. Are they paid by commission, or is the commission for or are they salaried? Both are good answers, by the way. Just because somebody is commissioned on selling a product doesn't mean that they're bad or shady or anything. But you do want to know the answer to that. Are they going to measure and evaluate your performance? You want to make sure they see the big picture. And ask them, can you tell me the last 2 clients you lost and why? Was it lack of communication? Was it poor management? What? Remember, pardon me, a little dry in here today. Pardon me, but you want to know where their shortcomings are and that they can recognize those. So again, work with a professional. Put your dollars into your investment and then leave it alone once you've done that. What you're seeing here is the diagram of the Dow Jones Industrial Average over the last 100 years. As you can see, going from left to right, it's gone up a little bit. there are dips and falls. Over here, you're seeing the Great Depression, but it does continue to go up. You need to put your money in. You need to leave it alone, period. Now let's talk about the type of investments. While I'm not a certified financial planner, I do have some thoughts for you to consider. Okay. Again, we're doing risk mitigation. So putting all your money into one startup stock, bad idea. But we want your money to grow. So putting all your money into gold, bad idea. You want it professionally managed and diversified. You want to make sure it's affordable, and you want to make sure some of it you need quick liquidity on. Okay, you're going to hopefully put it there and not touch it, but you want to be aware of that. All right. Looking for stuff that's relatively low dollar amount to get in, easy to redeem with some value. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay. But let the fund managers do the research for you. That's what we pay these guys for. Step 5, let's save for your children's college education. So what you're looking at here in the box, that mark at 5 years, you notice the chart started around 2015. 5 years is about where we are right now. So, and that's about right for a year of college in many schools. But you see where it's going. The trend is going up. Remember, we talked about educational lenders can be predatory. Even making the minimum payments may not cover the interest accrued. So we want to be very, very cautious about taking out school loans. If you can avoid any loan at all, that is the recommendation that I will give you as a coach. But consider the return on investment. A liberal arts degree may not offer the career opportunities and the salary that you might get with a nursing degree. Okay. You do have to consider the return on an investment. So, do you need to go to the biggest and the baddest school? Probably not. There is prestige in school if you're an attorney, and rarely and sometimes if you're a physician. Other than that, nobody cares what school you went to. I'm a nurse by trade. I've been a nurse since 1989. And every job I've gotten, I have never gotten asked once, where did you go to college? All they want to know is I have my degree and I have my nursing license. But you can also consider other options, okay? These are very, very strong options for anybody. It used to be, and the trend was going, well, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, got to go to college to make something out of yourself. But no, not necessarily anymore. Consider trade schools. Last estimate I heard was a HVAC tech who was doing commercial HVAC. Within 3 to 4 years of getting out of school and getting trained and doing that, they're making a salary over $80,000 a year. 80 in 3 years. You can't pass that up. Another option, if you do need to get into a position where a degree is required, such as nursing, what I did, a local community college for your prereqs, or even to get that first associate's degree for an RN before you move on to a 4-year college, is a very, very affordable and valid way to go. And speaking of colleges, consider going to an in-state school. Those of you who have sent kids to school out of state do know there is a cost difference. Even with community college, there is a cost difference with going to an out-of-state school. Of course, things like the family business, if there's a family business, you could jump into that too. That's a great way to get started, at least putting money aside and saving for that college education. So have a plan. Get that college education, if possible, without debt. Work before, work through college, save it up. Work hard and get your scholarships. We'll talk about things like that in a moment. But as we said before, over $1.6 trillion in student loan debt across America. That's from the Federal Reserve Bank. So start saving as soon as possible. 15% of your income towards your kids' college education. Now, I want to say that with a caveat. You can't neglect your own goals, and you must take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself, your kids will feel obliged or have to take care of you, and that's going to tap into everything you've given them already. So cover your 15% in retirement money. Once that one, let me give you an example. Let's say you have $1,000 after you've paid all your bills. You are debt free. You have a fully funded emergency fund, and you've got $1,000. And take that $1,000, 15% of your total income, and take that chunk out of your $1,000. So let's say that amount is $500. Now let's say that amount is $400. Okay. So you've got an extra $400 as 15% of your monthly income. That goes to retirement first. That leaves us $600. So take another 4%. That's 15% of your income. Put that into your child's college education savings. And we'll talk about savings venues in a moment. That's going to leave us $200. Remember that $200. We're going to come back to that. But cover your own stuff first. So the steps are simple. Finish paying off debt, fully fund the emergency fund, start your retirement savings, then start saving for college, kids' college. And use what's available. Education savings accounts, 529 college savings plan. For those who don't know, a 529 plan, that's just the number in the tax code that the college savings plan is given. It's how it's dealt with in taxes. Uniform transfer or uniform gift to Minors Act. And you can talk with your financial planner who you're already doing your retirement investing with to clue you into these things and to guide you in the proper vehicle for you and your needs. But here's some small details on them. Pros of an ESA or ESP, I'm sorry. There's a variety of options that grows tax-free, but you're limited on how much you can contribute. And that money has to be used by age 30. 529 plan, higher contribution rate. Usually there's no income limit, which there are some things on the ESPs. And there's restrictions apply if you want to transfer it to another child, which is an option for you in some cases. So again, talk to your CFP. I'm just covering these real high level. And the transfer of the gift. Funds can be used for more than just college expenses, which is very, very neat. If they want to take that money out and they're not going to college and they want to use it for trade school or buy a house, that would be fantastic. There are tax advantages for the contributor, but the money doesn't grow tax-free. So the con is beneficiary can use the money for anything, but they're going to have to pay some taxes. And once the beneficiary is selected, that stays with it. It can't be changed. So some college saving tips for high schoolers: apply for scholarship, save some money instead of spending it, open a savings account, get a job, take some AP classes, get a job. No reason you can't work. And we're going to move on to step 6, paying off your home early. So I want you to think about this. What could you do with your money if you did not have a mortgage? How much are you paying in a mortgage a month? Principal and interest. Think about that. What could you do with that money? How fast could you retire? How fast could you build up an emergency fund and get that peace of mind? You know, the best way to buy a home, cash. You close fast. You don't have to deal with a bunch of paperwork. Cash is the way to go. But if you have to get a mortgage, we have one. Most everyone does. No shame in it. Go with a down payment of at least 20%. This is going to keep away private mortgage insurance, which is that stuff that's on there extra in case you default. The lender gets all their money. It's an insurance policy. Many loans you can't get now without 20% down to get any sort of good terms. I'm sure you can find some. VA's got some no money downs and 3% downs. FHA's got some, but your terms may or may not be as good. but get that 20%. That shows you got skin in the game. The loan will close better, and that PMI is not there. And shoot for a 15-year fixed rate loan. Here's why we say this. Do you remember at the very beginning when I talked about the habits of those everyday millionaires? They pay off their house in 10.2 years on average. This gets you close to that and helps get you into that practice. So, you remember that $1,000 extra? We talked about $400 to retirement, $400 to kids' college, and we had $200 left over. This is where that $200 is going. Start paying off that mortgage as fast as you can. Then, just kill it. And then if you've got extra income coming in, you can start putting it onto that mortgage. Once you are debt free and you have reached that number, which is your retirement number, well, I'll put on the next slide. What can people with no debt do? Pretty much anything they want. So the goal here is continue to build wealth. Add your mortgage payment to your retirement or your college savings plans. Live like no one else. Turn off that alarm clock. Go travel. Buy a vacation home with cash. Retire early. And then give like no one else. Volunteer your time or expertise to support your profession. Give money to charity. Donate some time to a cause that's near and dear to your heart. That is financial freedom and financial security. That's a lot of information, but the steps do flow together. And what I'd like to do now is put it out there to see if anybody has any questions that have come up that Allie didn't let me know about.
I haven't seen any questions yet. We just have a comment here. Great info and lots of tips that can be applied to my life. So that's a definite.
Excellent. That's the goal.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe we give them a little more time to type out any questions they have. You mentioned earlier you had some resources you could recommend.
I do. I'll pull up. Well, it's the references for this slide deck, but I'll pull them up. But what I'd like to go through, if there's no questions, we could actually go through very briefly the process of budgeting, which people may find of help. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So we're going to cover budgeting. It's not a terribly long little section, but this is indeed the key. This is the key to everything we do. Sorry about that, folks. Let me get that out of here. You've got to budget and plan. If you don't plan, you know what they say, if you fail to plan to fail. All right. Ariel, I'm going to throw another question out, so keep your eyes open. I would like you folks just to type in a me into the chat box if you use a budget for your personal finances. Now, you can send them directly to Ariel so nobody else will see your answer. And let me know how many we get, my dear.
Mm-hmm. Getting some me. Couple answers here that say me.
I got a me here too.
Yeah.
Great. So next one. Okay.
Yeah.
We got a no, and that's okay. I want to know, for those of you who are doing a budget, is it written down or in digital format? I want you again to type in I do, if it's written down or if it's in digital format. Again, if you send them just to Ariel, I won't see them. And for those of you who have responded digital or written, do you review, or anybody else, do you review it monthly with your partner or spouse? Or if by yourself as a single person, do you review it monthly?
We have a yes and a weekly.
Weekly, fantastic. You're on top of it. That's great to hear. Okay. So this again, I can't stress it enough. It is the key. If you don't tell your money what to do, if you let your money tell you what it wants, it will choose every time to run away from you. Period. It doesn't want to be there with you. It wants to go away. Budget must be written or digital. Do you remember what we were talking about when we were talking about those baby steps, especially debt? It's about behavior. It's not about the math. Writing something down, or for many people's cases, doing it digitally, it gives it power. There is something behind not just sitting and thinking about it, but taking the effort to put it into somewhere downloaded out of your brain. Okay. There's a strength there. Reviewing it monthly, and whoever was doing it weekly, congratulations. Things change. And this keeps you mindful of your money. What this does is it lets you know where you're spending your money. What habits do you have? Is this a good habit or a bad habit? There was a young lady I started coaching who brought in about $1,800 a month take-home pay. When we started doing her budget, we realized that she was spending $750 a month on take-out food. So that was a tremendous amount of her budget, over 40%. Huge. So doing that keeps you mindful of that. So the goal is we're looking for a zero balance budget. What is zero balance budget? Well, every dollar gets a job. So if you bring home $2,000, you need to assign $2,000 to something. What are those some things? Well, that could be your house, your mortgage, your utilities. That could be food. That could be towards your debt. That could be towards your savings for a new car. And we're going to talk about saving up for things that are coming in a minute. That could be savings account, your emergency fund, or your retirement. Every dollar that comes in gets a job. Okay? The categories you want to consider are all right there, and I am going to go through these specifically. Charity, savings, housing, utilities, food, clothing, transportation, medical or health, and this can include vitamins or gym memberships, insurance, personal money, recreation, and debt. Personal money. This is the stuff you blow on yourself. In fact, there's a line in the budget that I use. It's called pocket money, okay, or personal money. This is your blow fund because you're going to blow money. But if you give yourself permission to blow that money, you keep $50 on you. I have $50 in my wallet. I can spend it on whatever I want. I don't have to tell my wife about it. I don't have to tell myself about it. I don't have to tell my kids about it. I don't have to tell anybody about it. My money. It's my blow money. You have permission to do that. So you're seeing budget is not necessarily a ball and chain, okay? A budget actually gives you freedom to spend your money. We just do it smart and we do it planned. So plan ahead for things, expenses you know that are coming. My car is a piece of garbage. I'm going to need a new car in about a year. You know this is coming. I don't care what baby step you are on. You know this is coming. Save up for it. Okay? We plan for these things with what we call a sinking fund. Okay? It's not that your ship is sinking, no, but it is money. It's a fund you sink money into to cover expenses that are coming. Okay? One very, very good example is a baby. Someone's got a baby on the way. We create a sinking fund. We go into storm mode and create that sinking fund, kind of like those analogies, for that baby, okay? Or a car. Or I know I'm going to need new clothing. Or I know I'm going to need a new hot water tank or furnace, okay? Save up for those. Now, these can be done very easily with what I call an envelope system, and I'm going to give you another follow-up system afterwards. But use an envelope system. So you take an envelope. You write on that envelope, let's write on it car, because I'm going to need a new car. And then I write, I'm depositing $500 to start. And every time I add money to that envelope, plus 100 equals $600, just like a checkbook register. Okay, keep track of but set that envelope aside. That money is spent, and you've worked that money into your budget, I'm putting $100 into my car sinking fund, and you put it in there. Now, a lot of banks and credit unions nowadays will offer digital sub accounts to your online banking. And if you find that you're able to do that and work with that and effectively and in disciplined way not touch that, that's fine. Okay. You can certainly do that. But the whole concept is setting that money aside for what's coming. So the process, there are 3 forms which we use. I'm going to cover the first one in a bit of detail. I'm going to just briefly touch on the second one and give you my contact information if you want more details. And I'm going to kind of briefly touch on the third one. Again, I'll give you my contact details afterwards. So just sit tight. There we go. There we go. It's moving. Okay, so the budgeting forms. They're hard to see, I understand. Again, you reach out to me by email. I can send you some better copies. But these forms are just 2 pieces of paper or a front and back. So you enter your income in the one top box on the form. Then within each main category, you'll be able to fill in the budget column. You add up the numbers and total it, keeping in mind the recommended percentages, which we're going to cover in a sec. I will get to percentages for each category. The best way to do this is to start with set costs like your mortgage, your internet, your phone, set items. Once those are added into the budget, then you add things to cover your 4 walls. You add in your food costs. You add in any insurance costs that may not be set, that may be higher. You add in, I'm going to need new clothes, etc. All right. So throw those in there afterwards. Your utilities are a big thing. Unless you're on a budget plan, gas and electric tend to, waiver per month. So consider in what month you're in and make your best guess. This is what you're doing. You're projecting forward. Nobody's got a crystal ball, but you can make an educated guess. And lastly, direct the rest of your money towards the baby step you're working on and or your sinking funds. Once you're done, you enter your net income in the top box. You total everything up you've budgeted on that form and enter it in box number 2. You subtract 1 minus 2. If 3 does not equal 0, go back up and readjust. 0 balanced or 0 based budget. Every dollar gets a job. Now, we're not done yet. You need to refer to this. I like that person who's doing it weekly. You need to refer to this often so you can keep track of what's going on. At month end, you enter in the actual spent column. And again, these forms will be available to you. Just kind of follow along. And this will help you track what you thought spending and what you actually spent. Okay. Then you can evaluate and fill out your budget for the next month. So the allocated spending form, this is a form that we use to cover how much you're paying out for each category per paycheck. And we're getting a little limited on time. I know we can go over a little bit, but I don't want to cover this one here because it does get in a little bit of detail. And again, I'm happy to work with you one-on-one with that. We will go to the irregular income one very simply. Once you figure out approximately what you're going to spend or what you're going to make for the month, and you list all your items out, and then here you list your items in order of priority that are additional, that weren't covered by your minimums. And everything above that minimum you were expecting on your irregular income, then you start ticking things from the top of the list down. Again, we can talk about that one-on-one. I'm happy to. You'll have my contact info. Please reach out to me after the session. So again, you make your best guess on your income. If you're unsure, use the lowest monthly income from last year. So I usually have people give it a try in class. We can't do that here. But I want you to take your phones out. If you're using your phone, take a screenshot. But I want you to take your phones out. I want you to take a picture of this. These are the approximate percentages, the recommended percentages for every category of your income. So for instance, housing should not be more than 25 or 30% of your income. Transportation, that's your car, that's your insurance, and maintaining that car shouldn't be more than 10 to 15% of your income. Personal money, recreation, each 5 to 10% of your income. Those are the recommendations. I'm going to assume everybody's taking the picture of it. Of course, we can do that. You can find this on YouTube where Ariel says it's going to be. She'll know. And you can always take a look at it again. So the key points, again, we're talking about the problem, America's debt crisis. The proven strategy is the 7 baby steps. A key point in budgeting is having a budget is a key. That's the key point. It is the key. Written, reviewed, and zero balance. And any questions? And while you got questions, I will leave this up on the screen so you guys can see my contact information. And thank you very much, Ariel, for having me on. I'm going to
thank you.
Search for that document while you're talking.
I did want to say we did have a question. You could maybe address for us. We had someone asked, "What should I do with my stimulus money?"
Oh, see.
Towards debit or an emergency fund.
Right. So we're kind of in storm mode right now. Remember how I talked about the baby coming, or, you know, we know an expense is coming. So depending upon what work you do, all right, for instance, if you're a registered nurse working in a hospital, you've got pay, you've got work. I would take that money and probably throw it to whatever baby step you're working on right now, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Just slip it right in there. If you are furloughed, or if you are in a job that you're not getting paid your full salary, if at all, hold on to that money and use that to pay your bills. Okay, storm mode. We're in a storm right now, and you got to hold on to those resources. Now, once this all clears, and again, if you're furloughed or not working, once this all clears and you get back to work, once you start getting checks in and you're able to pay for your expenses, then anything you have left over, throw it towards whatever step you're on. But again, hold on to it if you're not working. If you are working, put it into the step you're working on.
And then you have your contact information up now. So if anyone's like me and like, oh, I should have asked that, and it's 2 days from now.
You got my email. Please.
We know where to reach you.
And let me know that you were on the webinar here. That'd be great. So I will go through these slowly for you, Ariel, so that you can people pause and look for the resources that they're interested in. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time and your questions and your attentiveness, especially to a chat. It's a lot easier when we're all live together, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, thank you again. Very helpful information. A lot to think about, a lot of action points,
Yep.
work to do. Speaking personally, but
yeah, we all do. It's always something that we push for. We are good, but we all always want to move to get better. So it's all good.